media deep dives, and like you said, it could be a black hole, right? And I just can't afford to do that. So again, that's how I prioritize my day. Is I make sure that I know exactly what I'm going to be going into each day and being organized, so that I'm hitting all the marks, right? Just being super efficient with my days.
Yeah, well, and here's the interesting question. We only got a couple left. Some of these are fan questions, but this one is kind of about your faith, and it's important to you, and that you draw strength from it. And I know you are one of the most humble people I've ever met, but I know in the podcast, this podcast, I can't say your podcast. We're on The Answer Is Yes, but you had your brother. You had your brother on that. On this show, and obviously, he works for In-N-Out, has been highly successful. You've been highly successful. I mean, what do you think that has made you the person you are today as a businessman, as a family man, as an athlete? I mean, you've been highly successful. You're humble. I mean, and obviously your brother is very much the same. I mean, what do you think? What's led you to where you're at, and how you did things?
Well, I think that. Speaking for myself and my brother, both of my brothers, we had pretty humble beginnings. We didn't have a lot. What we did have, we worked for, and we've talked about that on my shows, especially my brother talked about it, the early part of his success. So you have a true appreciation for earning a living and taking care of your family and things like that. My dad was a very hard worker, so we had a great example of how to be men of the household and how to take care of our obligations and provide for our families and be in a relationship where it's kind of, give on both sides, equally yoked. And I think, for me, my faith plays a role in that in terms of being committed to my relationship and putting my family first and working hard, putting in a good, hard day's work. We truly believe in that. And with that foundation, I've always tried to, take the high road or be the best that I could be in any scenario. And that doesn't mean it's happened every time. I've had some fallouts with previous business partners and colleagues, and I can't honestly say I've always felt bad after them. I've never had a fallout like, oh, thank God that person's out of my life. I always felt like, gosh, what could I have done better to make that end better? That was a business decision, but I still feel bad about it. But I think always taking the high road and doing for other people first and then myself second, it's really paid off for me in terms of, my personality and how people perceive me. I also, and I know that you can relate to this, I also attribute a lot of who I am today to off-road racing because, when you're out in the middle of the desert and there's nobody out there and you break down, you're just hoping somebody stops to help you, right?
That's the truth.
Please give me a tow.
Yeah.
Give me some water, whatever. And I've always been or tried to be that person that will stop when I can for a fellow racer or somebody that's out there, trying to complete their day and offer support to them or give them a part or give them something they need or send a guy to go help them if I've got it available. And I've always tried to be that person. I think off-road has continued to instill that in me in my later part of my life when I'm not under my parents' roof, right, getting a daily lesson. I think off-road's instilled a lot of that in me. And I learned a lot of that from Cameron Still and some of the other colleagues that you and I both know very well. And, you're just like that person. We broke down in Parker, Arizona, and you're like, yeah, come to my house. My shop is always open to you. And you truly mean that. And your shop, literally, you saved our butts on a race weekend, and your whole family was there, and we used your tools and your supplies, and then you guys fed us and gave us drinks. And, and I think that the off-road family and mentality has added a lot of value to. I am not only as a businessman, but as a father and a mentor and an athlete. And I want to give equal credit to what off-road's done for me and that off-road family that I have to who the person I am today.
Yeah, well, and, I call it Offroad Karma, and, there's some people in this industry, yourself, and like you said, Cameron, and I know the McMillan family has bailed me out of Mexico. I don't know how many times, broke down out on the Mike's Loop pre-running, and not a soul in sight, and, there's a lot of people, and I'm not, and that's just not limited there. I mean, I can give you a countless list, but, I call it Offroad Karma. What goes around comes around, and you definitely want to build those karma points, because at some point you're going to need to cash them in, but I think it's that way in life, and we don't do it because we know at some point we're going to have to cash them in. You just, I don't know how to put it into perspective, but, I think it's not just in off-road. It's that way in anything in life. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it,
Yeah, wouldn't it be fascinating if we as a society treated things that way more, like what you said, off-road karma are just good karma, being good to people. It blows me away, Jim, when you hold a door open for somebody these days and they're like genuinely appreciative and thanking you.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost undeserved. Like, no, this is just common etiquette and kindness to hold a door open for somebody, but so few people do it anymore that you receive that genuine thank you. Like, no, you're making me feel bad. Like I want to do this, right? And I just think that as a society, we've gotten away from some of those good karma points, and I really wish we could get back to that at some point.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I tell this to people all the time. I'm like, you want to see the effect just being nice can have on somebody. Next time you go into the convenience store, those people, especially sometimes they've worked the night shift, they've been in there all night. They're trying to make a paycheck, they're trying to make ends meet, they're working hard. You know what I mean? And it's draining. Working 8 hours behind the cash register at night. When you go in at 6 a.m. for your coffee, they're coming off a shift or something like that. But look them in the eye and say, hey, thank you, have a really great day. And they're going to look at you and their minds are going to be blown like, what? This is the first person all day that said that to me. You know what I mean? But it's funny, just those small words you can see their frown just turn into a smile automatically. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, as simple as 3 or 4 words can change somebody's day.
Yeah, we talk about that type of personality and that type of kindness on my Baja Sessions show because the people in Mexico are so kind. And I think we have a lot to learn from cultures like the Hispanics that we run into down in Baja, different parts of Mexico. They're so genuinely kind. They're willing to give you the shirt off their back, literally, and or invite you in for a meal or a drink, or at the places they work, they're happy to serve you. And I just think that there's a lot to be learned from that. And I know we're kind of getting off the topic, but you asked me, where I am as a person, how I got there, and I really just believe that it's from trying to do my best, from the things that I've learned.
Well, before we let you go, Jim, or I guess let you go on your show, I don't know how that quite works yet, but I mean, obviously, you're 50, you're shredding it in Spartan Racing. You've had a great off-road career, you've had a great business career as a businessman. I mean, I got to ask you, what's next for Jim Riley?
That's a good question because what's interesting, when you train for something for 4 months, 5 days out, I was already wondering what was next because I was envisioning the finish line. I was envisioning being on a podium. I was envisioning having success up there, because I believe in the power of seeing the finish line, right? And I was already seeing beyond that going, what am I going to do next? And of course, as a good trainer would do, my trainer Jordan says, you should enter the Spartan Beast on the 21st of October because you'll be in the best shape of your life. It's only half the distance. You could probably go there and do really well. So on a smaller scale, I'm going to go race that in a couple of weeks. And I'm excited about that because we've got some other gym friends that will be out there in the open class, and I want to support them. As it relates to next year, I'm pretty sure I'm going to run the competitive age group series itself and not do it. The Ultra, I was one and done. I'm not going to do that again. I don't want to put my body through that kind of abuse, nor do I want to put in 70 hours worth of running each week leading up to the Ultras. So I'm going to stick with a regular competitive race series, and that is 2 sprints, 2 supers, and 2 beasts. And then if you qualify, like I have this year, we'd go to Tahoe for the World Championships, and then I'd also qualify for Greece like I did this year, which I'm not going to Greece to go race there. So I'm going to do that, and then because you're an off-road guy, I'll probably pick up some off-road races. I know I'm going to go race the vintage Baja 1000 in the Nora series with my 57 Chevy and have some fun with that. And I may pick up some local races in a trophy truck from a new team coming out and go have some fun next year with that. And hopefully it's all centered around my family being around me and having a good time with it.
Well, congratulations on the podium, and it's been really kind of amazing to see you go through this process with Spartan Racing. It's one of those, like, I've always seen these. I know I was actually up in Seattle when Marshawn Lynch put on something. It wasn't Spartan Racing, but it was something very similar. And I watched that, and it was something Dirtfish was involved in. And I'm like, this is something where I'm definitely not interested in doing an Ultra Beast. But it's something
Yeah.
where I'm like, I'd like to up my training just a bit, and I think it'd be fun to go out and do one of these. And it's literally, I don't care if I'm competitive. I just want to go out and do it just to say I did it and have a good time. And I know, like, seeing you do it, it's definitely got me where the interest is there, where it's like, hey, I think I want to put in a little bit extra time training and maybe go and try one of these things.
Yeah, and I want to say this to everybody, is that nothing is out of your reach to go do it. If you can just have the drive and the passion to go do something, write down the goal and work towards that goal, right? So if in this case, if somebody was going to go out and do a Spartan sprint, which is 3 to 5 miles, pick one that's a couple months out on the calendar and start working towards running a couple miles, a week, and then up to a couple miles a few days a week. Now all of a sudden you're logging some mileage and you're working towards having that goal. Anybody can achieve these things, and that's what's so great about Spartan is, the obstacles themselves, some are very easy, but for others they're challenging because they have, maybe it's a mental block. For example, out of California, because, we don't get to do anything here, at the finish lines they have a fire jump. Well, the fire is only a foot in the air, but if you're afraid of fire, you're not going to jump that 1 foot, right? And just about anybody can jump over something that's a foot high. But I love that it puts people out of their comfort zone, because your sense of accomplishment when you're done will allow you to achieve other things in your life that maybe you think you couldn't do. And it's a really powerful exercise to go out and do something that takes you out of your comfort zone, especially if you do it with some friends and you do it together, and then you can celebrate the camaraderie and the achievement at the end of that day. So I would say anybody that's thinking about doing something athletic, look into the Spartan series, get off your butts, BUT''S, and sign up for something and then work towards it. And Jim, because you even remotely mentioned it, now I'm going to have to tell you to get off your butt and get out there and do it. There's a Spartan race in Vegas, and there's one in Scottsdale. So you've got two that aren't too far away from you that you can drive into. Or I know you're working for Lucas Oil out here. We can find something in LA that you can come do when you're on a Lucas Oil week working for them.
Yeah, well, maybe it's one of those things where I look at the dates for like the Phoenix and the Vegas one next year and just mark it on the calendar, go out and do it. I think it'll be a ton of fun and give me a little bit of time to up my training a bit. So, yeah.
Yeah. Listen, man, I know that we flipped the roles here today, but I wanted to figure out how to get these questions answered that the people had written in. So I really appreciate you asking me the questions. And I love talking to you. We had some great times over the years on your show, and I'm so appreciative for the airtime that you've given me on Down and Dirty, and you do a great job out there, like I mentioned, Lucas, and you do work for General Tire and a bunch of other great companies. So thanks for all the years you put me on your show. Now you're on mine. Roles reversed on the answer is yes. So, Jim, anything you want to plug while you're on here? What are you doing next? I should ask you a question, then I'll sign off on this thing.
Man, no, just like Jim said, biggest thing, obviously, if you're a motorsports fan, downanddirtyshow.com. I've got a guy that writes motorsports content daily, a couple pieces of content every single day. My two shows, Down and Dirty Radio Show drops Tuesdays, airs nationally on the weekends, but you can subscribe on iTunes. And I've got my other show with Podcast One called Project Action, and we interview people from all over the grid. I had Natalie Ava Marie 2 weeks ago. She's from the E-Show Total Divas. She also was a pro wrestler, former college soccer player. Amazing interview with her. She's got a new podcast. And then Travis Pastrana last week on the show. So always fun. Definitely subscribe over to that on iTunes as well. So I don't know. I guess follow me at Jim Beaver 15 on social media. I think I slid everything in there, Jim.
Well, I'm kind of honored. Was it earlier this year you hit 1 million? Was it 1 million subscribers or downloads?
Oh, yeah, that was on my Project Action. So the Down and Dirty Radio Show, that's the one I started like 6-7 years ago, and I was lucky because I was right place, right time. So those numbers have always been really, really high, and they still are. I mean, it does really well. But 2 years ago, I got in touch with Podcast One out of Beverly Hills, and they gave me a second show on their network, and it was one where I just told them, I said, I want to be able to do whatever I want and interview whoever I want. And, and they said, no problem. And so, I mean, I've interviewed everybody from, Sebastian Bach from Skid Row to professional video gamers, to athletes, to race car drivers, to pro wrestlers and MMA fighters. So that show, it was a new show. It was a startup. And, earlier this year we hit 1 million 1 million downloads to the show. It was like, it took a year and a half to do, but I think after a year and a half we had 1 million downloads to the show, and I think now we're already at 1.3 million or something like